All right, Shane. So, the first thing I'm going to say, I kind of don't want anybody to be misled by the mock up that we just listened to. There's a lot more to it than we're hearing, but just maybe recommend that you get like maybe try out Note Performer if that's compatible with the application that you're using. Just it seems like the brass is a bit it's a bit edgy. Probably pushing a lot more than a than soft horns would be sounding like, and so on. So anyhow, let's talk about a few things about expression and phrasing. Okay. Now I think that I've mentioned this before in a few other in a few other evaluations. If you have not seen them yet, apologies. But that is that really, like, there are a bunch of things that need to be fixed here. Okay, so one of them is just the whole sense of bowing and slurring and how those relate to each other. Okay. Generally speaking, a string player would not want to cover all of these notes in one bow at the tempo that you have assigned, right? And furthermore, it's complicated by the fact that you've added a bunch of articulation marks below the length of the slur. All right, so the beginning and end of the slur really mean this is going to be covered with one bow. And it doesn't. I'm sympathetic if you are saying, well, why can't wind and brass and string players just understand that is like a phrase mark rather than a bowing mark or a breath mark? But that is the way they think, and we just have to get used to it. As if we come from a pianist composer type of background, when we really have to score to make life convenient for them. Okay. The other thing too is that when you slur over tenuto marks, it means one thing, and when you slur over staccato marks, it means another. Like this means mezzo staccato, but generally you don't have like a tied note in the middle of a mezzo staccato. If this were, because what you're going to get is just a little kind of a oomph, kind of a staccato, just little emphases, right? In which case you do not really need these little notes to be so long, right? And then the same thing, portato is like just slightly separated. It's almost like a more emphasized mezzo staccato. It's like, right? So that means a different thing entirely. And then here you're slurring across mezzo staccato to portato, and it doesn't really make any sense. And then here you have slurs over staccato tenuto, which means a completely different thing. It's like an unga type of sound, unga, 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 in which case the slur mark means nothing, right? Because you can't get that unga kind of sound. Same thing with the trumpet. You can't get that without interrupting your breathing or interrupting your bowing, correct? In which case we don't use the slur, right? Okay, so that's one thing. And it's the same thing kind of with a row of accents, right? If you slur over a row of accents, this means the first accent is going to be tongued, right? So tongue, and then the rest of them, since they're all going to be in one breath, are going to be done as accents with the stomach. So right? It's like just doesn't have the same kind of bite. So if you just get rid of the slurs and they're all separately articulated, tongue, 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 right? They're really effective. They're really effective articulated notes. Alrighty. So those are some things for you to watch out for. Now, let's talk about nuances, about hairpins, okay? Now, generally speaking, when you have a row of hairpins that just are kind of all the same over and over and over again, those will be interpreted to mean that you're sort of pushing into each note, but not that each note is getting progressively louder and louder. But most people who are scoring these evaluations really intend for the music to get a little bit louder each time and then to get softer. So the best thing to do is just have one hairpin that takes us from here to there. And then the other hairpin will take us from there to there, right? Because otherwise, you're just really going da, 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 right? It's that kind of sound, right? Okay, so all in all, the approach here with all of these hairpins was, in effect, to kind of lose the sense of lose a sense of nuance, a sense of inflection, right? Of like letting us know what the melody could really build on, right? Okay, so those are all different things that you need to think about. All right, now let's talk about the way that this is scored. Okay, so you have straight mute on your trumpet, and all you have to do is just say mute or consort, okay? And that is the default is a straight mute, right? So are these three instruments muted as well, right? And there's another strange thing. You say A3, but you're scoring in three parts. So we know that it's with three, right? If you had all of your three trumpet players playing a single line like this, then you would want to say A3, right? But we do not need this because we know that it is three players, right? We can see that there are three parts. So you don't need to mark A3. We know. Okay, here though, we would need to know which player is playing this note right here. So, here you've got I think this is intended to be third and fourth horn. And then here you've got your first horn, possibly, or maybe second, I don't know. So you need to tell us right here, who's this person? And the same thing with the two trombones. Is this A2, right? A2? Or is this with a single player? Probably in this case, like you've got some fairly high bass trombone scoring, and this is all perfectly possible, but wouldn't it be easier just to give this to the second trombone, right? And then you have the two players right next to each other playing really nicely balanced. And then here, where you are playing in octaves with the tuba, then it's much better of a bass trombone line. Okay, so, but altogether, it's not too badly scored. We've got the tremolo down here, E, and then it's kind of strange. Then it's slurring up to F sharp, and I'm wondering if this was possibly a mistake, if maybe the notes dropped or something while you had them selected. Anyhow, I mean, it still works, but I would say you kind of don't need like the slur or whatever looks like a tie between these two bars. You would want to get rid of because they're separate notes, right? Usually a tremolo doesn't really need to be connected by tie marks. Although if you do connect it by tie marks, you're usually trying to group them together for the convenience of the player, right? So the player is looking at this and they're saying, oh yeah, they're thinking to themselves, right, so I'm going to be playing a bunch of F's tremolo together, and then I'm going to be playing some some E's tremolo together, and then some F sharps tremolo together. So you're confusing things by putting a slur in between here, because there is no slurring, from this pitch to that pitch, right? So you would want to get rid of that. Okay. All right, so now back to the scoring. So we've got horns. So if these were really, really soft, I would say get rid of all of the hairpins, just throw them in the trash and just do pianissimo. So you have this soft bed of horns. And also get rid of the tenuto marks, right? The tenuto marks to give the horn note that's full value, right? Which it tends to be a very firm note. You don't want firm notes here. You want very, very soft notes. And possibly just like all of these B's being tied together. And then you could have this as two separate voices, I would recommend. Just with a C sharp all tied all the way through. And then the F sharp going back and forth to E sharp in the first voice as its own separate voice, right? So separate stems on these notes. with a tie below and slur above, right? So just do this, all these 4 bars as kind of one breath. And then ba da da dum da 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 bum bum bum. So now you're going da dum. Isn't this da dum kind of like the beginning of a statement? So wouldn't it be better to have the the first trumpet come in here on the 3rd beat? Bum 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 bum, right? Then I really like the way that you filled in the harmony here with some with strings and with your horns and so on and so forth. Really important for you to keep the brass in the background if you really want a beautiful blend there, right? So if you're starting off piano and so on, and then you're increasing here, I would think that maybe increasing up to, say, maybe a mezzo forte or poco forte, then come in with your other brass players. Like the heavy brass right in here could be like maybe pianissimo, crescendo to a mezzo piano. And that will keep it underneath the strings, right? And then you have this nice little ba-da-doo-dee, da-dum. All right, and then this thing right here at the end. I think that, you don't need all of your string players, like all of your violin players, to play this last line here. Why can't the second violins maintain a harmonic presence right in here, right? Why do they have to double what the first violins are doing? Just stay, keep things harmonized in here, right? Don't just leave it to the overtones from the horns. Now, one thing about this horn scoring is that it is it's not really quite done in the correct order, right? Throughout this entire first 5 bars, you have 3 voices going on. So those 3 voices should be given to the first, second, and third player, right? So in actuality, like the way that this would really look is that you would have, if you follow my suggestion, B tied all the way across, also B here. And then this low C sharp tied would be underneath, right? So the first and the second player would be on the same staff, and they would just be holding that 7th all the way through. Then your third player would be going back and forth between F sharp and E sharp, all on its own staff, right? And ending with this G. And then here, the voices would interlock, right? So this D sharp would be given to the third player, and this F sharp would be given to the second. So you just switch these 2 notes on those 2 staves, the inner voices, right? Because you always want your third player, who is the higher player of this lower staff, you want your third player to be taking the second highest pitch in 4-part harmony, okay? All right, so that would need to be fixed there and here, right? Although this is really cool the way that you've got this scored. This is perfectly acceptable if you want these 2 players to continue playing together and then just really fade out, right? But you would need to mark in that kind of more nuanced approach. Okay, but we'll get to that. Okay, and sforzando piano, yeah, I mean, it's just a little bit cluttered, right? I think you can just say SFP. Okay, that's is good enough. You don't have to put the Z in there or the Z in there. It's a little, it's just a little cluttered. It means the same thing if you just say SFP. All right. Okay, now finally, I really love the way that you just trade over from this sort of warm brass and string scoring to this very simple wind scoring. That's very, very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. So da 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 dum da da dum. Yeah, da 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 dum. Very, very nice. And I really like the way that the oboes and the clarinets are working together in harmony. All really, really good here. Contrabassoon pretty low, and I mean you're going to hear kind of the roughness of the contrabassoon way down there because you're not doubling it with double basses. So yeah, this sort of unembarrassed. I mean, look, you could easily do this with this is in the range of the standard bassoon, and it would actually sound a lot cleaner than played on contrabassoon. Sorry. Okay, but that's still all right. So then you've got your winds going, bum, 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 bum. Hey, what if you just didn't have harp here, which is going to be kind of inaudible anyways? And then you just have the harp come in here, not pianissimo, but like mezzo forte, right? Because it's going to be really hard to hear the harp anyway. So the conductor is just going to be giving the, come here wave to the harpist to get them to play louder here anyway, right? So why not just be the one to mark that? Or you could just have mezzo forte all the way through with these 4 bars. But I also like the effect of the harp playing along with the winds and then continuing to play. However, it won't balance, right? You've got mezzo forte in your harp, and you only need the dynamic in the middle. You don't need a dynamic below, right? So dynamic in the middle, just like piano score. And you don't want to score mezzo staccato for harp because like that, they kind of like have to pad it each time. Blah, blah, blah. It's just fussy, and it really is. This is more of a woodwind thing. But then you didn't put your slur over the mezzo staccato part, and you don't have, you didn't give the bassoons the staccato, right? Please try to be consistent throughout if you really want a nice perfect functions here. Nice perfect articulations across the entire section. Okay. But if you really want this to balance, mezzo forte is fine here. This should be marked forte. And then here, this could be mezzo forte here at the end. But don't mark it pianissimo because it'll just disappear, right? And then bum, 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 bum. There were a few wrong notes here and there throughout this first screen, but yeah, especially right in here. So just, if you didn't intend for them to be mistakes, or if you didn't intend to write different chords than what I provided, then maybe just do some more double checking, like compare listen to your playback, listen to the original piano score again. Okay. So this is okay. It's fine the way that it's scored, but I have 2 problems. Okay, the first one is da 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 da. Right? Lili in the original score is going down. She's headed down to here. She's headed down to F sharp below, not above. Da 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 da. What if you just scored the upper strings an octave higher, right? And so they would be cruising above these brass, so they'd be bum 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 bum, and then you could hit this F sharp, this higher F sharp, and then it would make more sense, right? So anyways, but yeah, just kind of changing directions and going back up. I don't feel the sense of release with a higher, with a higher chord, with a higher harmony. But, other than me picking all this to pieces, still pretty cool. Now, let's take a look at the rest of this score that you submitted. Okay, so going on, it was really, really great to have another few bars here. Bum 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 da 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 bum bum bum. Now, it's completely unnecessary to have an ottava mark over a piccolo line, right? The piccolo is already ottava. Okay? So if you were to give a piccolo player an additional ottava mark, then you would be playing, this D would actually be above the highest C on the piano, right? So we don't need this, get rid of it. And in the range that you are scoring this, you definitely can start pianissimo on these notes with the piccolo, all right? But just keep in mind that it just really, like, having this upper edge here with the piccolo just really kind of makes everything very, very bright. There's like no, like you have piccolo going through almost everything for the rest of this passage. So there's like no relief to the ear. It's constantly being asked to hear things that are right, near the highest part that the ear can make sense of pitch, right? It's going all the way up there to the very top. All right. But, so you've got you end up with a triple octave here of flutes and piccolo. and then we're reinforcing the lower note here with English horn. Now, here's the problem: is that as you start to descend here, the lowest, the low octave here of the flute, it's just really becoming is just really hard to hear. When it gets below C in the staff, it just becomes harder and harder. And then as you get louder and you get higher up, then it's more audible. But then you've got these low G sharps in here, and then an E, F sharp again. So this entire second flute part right in here just feels to me like it's way too low. What's wrong with like the English horn is just standing around doing nothing, right? Why couldn't the English horn be playing these lower pitches? It would be perfect. Then you could go A2, A2 on the top line, right? And then the lower line could be played by a much more secure, confident partner, right? Or clarinet, like the clarinets are just sitting around doing nothing, right? That's perfect for clarinet range. It's it is cool. It is a great octave partner with the flutes. It can cover their every nuance. It can really support beautifully from below. Why not have the clarinet in there instead of second flute? Then as I said before, then you can have this A2 all the way across here on on this upper line. Okay, and then but you are sort of throwing in English horn by the time you get to here. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So you do make up for it there, but yeah, it just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like most of that part, especially, the more you have massive brass accompanying the winds, the less you can get away with having a flute part that is that low. Okay, so that's one of my soapboxes, and I haven't gotten tired of yelling about it yet. And the other thing too is that we've got very sparse strings right in here, barely contributing anything. It's just pretty much just winds, which is okay, but this is another case of having the violins playing like the lower octave, which is happening a lot. I don't know why this is, but it's happening a lot. Why can't the violins be following? There's nothing wrong with just playing this high F sharp on first violins, as they do that all the time. They do it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So why couldn't the top line of the flutes be doubling the violins at that same octave, right? So yeah, and then okay. So but I do really like the way that this all kind of crashes into the brass. But here we got lower winds going to fortissimo. They are totally not going to balance with fortissimo in timpani and the rest of the brass section. Forte is the marking you want to put for here, right? So this should be pianissimo crescendo to forte, and then the forte diminuendo to pianissimo right here by the end of this bar, and then here in these bars. Otherwise, you do not have a balance. And what's more, you kind of have, like right here, I sense that this is just basically harp, like parts of the piano score just kind of dumped onto the harp staff. It's really not doing a whole lot. I would say just get rid of all of this. This is just fussy. This is nothing that a harpist would want to try to pluck their way through. A lot of things are too far apart, and yeah, it's, you'd be better off just getting rid of everything but just some chords right in here and having them scored much, much higher where they're audible, or maybe following the line of the melody here. Seems like maybe on these last four bars you were kind of running out of steam a little bit, or maybe didn't have quite as organized an approach as you thought you were going to. So, apologies if that wasn't so. But yeah, I mean, I do like the way that the idea is the direction you're going with the melody line and the trumpet, and and then stacked on top with all the other instruments here, and once again, trumpet playing kind of around the same exact territory as the flutes is just really not, that second flute is not going to come through at all. It'd be okay with the English horn, okay, But anyway, yeah, I think once again there were some wrong notes in here and stuff. So yeah, just really try to compare with the original before you send it in. But yeah, but I mean, basically it works, but there's still a lot of just little things to adjust and tweak and fix here and there. Okay, but I mean, very cool to look at. Just try to work on balance a little bit more. You know, bring the brass down a little bit compared to the other sections is always a good idea when you've got this kind of mass 2T scoring like this. Try to have parts maybe that have more, there's more integration across, right? You know, you've got this da 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 da, and then these instruments just kind of drop out and don't have any more of a supporting role. Then da 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 bum bum bum. You'll feel the lack of that, the lack of that support as you go forward, right? But I mean, you do have some cool lower wind scoring right in here, so I don't want to take away from that. It is pretty neat. Okay, so that was all I had to say about this, Shane. But just really great to see another score from you, and just to see how you're evolving as an orchestrator and just getting better and better and getting really cool ideas. And also, I just really appreciate how involved you are with the group and how you've been leaving comments on other videos, as I recall, and just really being positive about this whole challenge. And it's just really great to have you involved with it. It's really awesome, and to have you supporting on Patreon too. It's just amazing. So thank you for your entry. Thank you for your support, and I hope that other orchestrators will come in and comment on a lot of stuff that I just kind of didn't have time to cover. There were quite a few other little bits and pieces that I could have commented on, but it just would open up another can of worms. And, I mean, there is a role for everybody to play in commenting on each other's scores here, which, is to catch things that I feel that I've already mentioned maybe in other videos, which is another good reason for everybody to watch, at least a dozen or two videos from this entire series of 146 entries. So anyhow, I'll stop babbling now, and I will get on to the next entry, the last one for today. But thank you so much, Shane, and I look forward to reading more of your comments.